Hello, family. I hope this message finds you in good health, joy, and tranquility. If not, I hope by the end of this session, you will be able to raise your vibrational frequency and feel better. All right, let's get started. They say the hardest thing for a human to do is think. That's a cliche. And another cliche I've heard is um, everything we do as humans starts with a thought. So they say the hardest thing for a human to do is think, and everything we do starts with a thought. So it sounds like a paradox, won't you think? All right, let's go and investigate that. I'll quote one of my favorite, if not my favorite, scientist slash philosopher out there. His name is Dr. Joe Dispenza. He says actually that as humans, we're either defined by the memories of the past or the visions of the future. In other words, um, our destinies are defined by the memories we have of the past or the visions we have of the future. So, I wanted you to actually think for a second. Actually, just close your eyes for about 2 minutes and just don't think about anything. Just try to keep your mind steady for about 2 minutes. So if you were able to do what I said you should do for 2 minutes, which is close your eyes and not think about anything, you would find that it's almost impossible if it's a practice you've actually never done before. That's because 90% of us have our memories or our subconscious minds programmed to past events. So you'd see that as you closed your eyes, without thinking about anything, it's almost like an unrealistic thing. I'm talking about for those that have actually not practiced the art of meditation, which, we'll probably talk about later. Thoughts just keep coming at you like at alarming rates, like everything you do, like your mind is literally out of whack. So you have thoughts of things that happened yesterday, that happened 5 minutes ago, that happened a year ago. The people come into your minds, as a result of different events you've actually experienced. This is how the subconscious mind works. The only difference is for 2 minutes, you actually paid attention to your thoughts. Why am I saying this? From the time you wake in the morning till the time you go to bed, you probably never paid attention to the fact that your entire day leading to your entire week is pretty much the same process, to the extent that it becomes automatic, that you put little consideration to these events as they happen. So let's actually examine some of those events. So you wake up in the morning, you get out of bed. These days, you probably you check your cell phone for the first time to check your Facebook, your Instagram, or whatever social media you're actually into. So you go use the bathroom and then maybe take a shower, brush your teeth, whichever one comes first. And then maybe have some breakfast, drink some coffee, and head out to work. You probably drove the same way you've driven in the past 5 years or for the past 5 years. You meet the same people at your job that you've dealt with for the past 5 years. You do the same thing. You solve the same problems you've been solving for the past 5 years. During lunchtime, you go to the same restaurant, and your entire workday finishes, and then you drive back home the same way you've driven for the past 5 years. When you get home, you do basic things like watch TV, eat dinner, you go back to bed, and then you repeat the cycle all over again. This is typically what most people's days look like. But what I'm actually telling you is you use little or no effort to create these things. Now, if at the time you closed your eyes, you never thought about any of these things I described, more than likely you probably thought about an event that took place 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, or something that happened a long time ago, or maybe something that happened last week. An example of one of those, maybe somebody betrayed you. Maybe the betrayal took place by your best friend 5 years ago, and the image is so vivid in your mind today. Why do you think that is? It's because events that mean a lot to us usually come with an accompanying emotion or feeling. So let's say, for instance, that your best friend betrayed you. You probably created an emotion of anger, or maybe hate, or maybe distrust. And in your mind, you probably said, I'll never forgive that person. So these thoughts actually become they become embedded in your mind. And then the feelings you have become the lens from which you actually begin to look at that person. So much so that you were out of touch with the person for 10 years. The first time you saw that person, your mind begins to tell you, you begin to have thoughts of what happened 10 years ago. And then you relieve the feelings all over again. The feeling of anger, the feeling of hate, the feeling of distrust. So I'm actually telling you that most of us think that, and even for justifiable reasons, what that person has done warrants these emotions. However, I'm here to announce to you, as much as the way I announced to myself when I figured this out, I started to make changes to how I viewed life. If you had a feeling of emotion, if you had a feeling of anger or hatred towards somebody for an event that happened 10 years ago, you're likely reaffirming your addiction to those emotions. I'll say that again. If you had a feeling of anger or hatred towards a person for an event that took place 10 years ago, or even last week, it's not that person anymore at this point. It is you using that person as a reaffirmation to your addiction to anger or hatred. The subconscious mind works this way. It loves the familiar. It thrives in the familiar, to the extent that in the absence of a future vision, you're stuck with the memories of the past, which means that your entire being continues to create a future that is known to you. In other words, if you do not have visions of the future, you're stuck with the memories of the past, which makes you have a predictable future. What does a predictable future mean? More of the same. Nothing changes. If you went to work the same way for the past 5 years and things like that, your subconscious mind is telling you, let's keep it rolling. It's not going to change. You're going to continue to get the same results. Like in your mind, as an example, if you continue to have thoughts of poverty, you live in poverty. Everything around you is an indication of your thoughts. It blew my mind away when I started to actually think about these things. Everything around me is a result of my current thoughts, which is really my past thoughts. Your past thoughts and your future thoughts are correlated because it's essentially more of the same. In the absence of the visions of the future, because at that point you cannot think higher than the way you feel. Therefore, your feelings take over everything you do. This is where the visions of the future come into place. How do you begin to do that? Let's say, for instance, you've always wanted a BMW. The way to actually begin to even have a chance of having that BMW is to begin to go into the future, creating your BMW, the color, the look, the make. You put yourself inside that BMW. You feel the BMW. You touch the seats of the BMW. However, it doesn't end there. You bring that BMW into the present moment. I begin to act like you already have that BMW, expressing it with emotion or feelings of gratitude or joy, acting as though that event has taken place. What's the catch to that? The mind, the subconscious mind, cannot differentiate between a future event or an imagined event and a real event. As a result of that, it has to acquiesce to your request. In other words, it would reluctantly agree that the event has taken place, and then you can have what you want. Therefore, in the absence of that future vision or the events of the future, we continue to create the same things that we've always gotten. I am actually very interested in this topic because it tells us that everything around us can actually be gotten but the problem we have is that our environment is creating our thinking. Therefore, we do not have space to create the environment we want through our thinking. In other words, your environment is creating your thinking, which your thinking should create your environment. Remember, if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hands. Imagination, according to Albert Einstein, is a preview to life's coming attractions. If you've never ever envisioned yourself in a particular position or in a particular place or in a particular event or in a particular situation, more than likely that event or that thing would not happen. How many people want to be millionaires but have never held in their minds the thoughts of being millionaires, talk less of beginning to actually live as though they are millionaires? This is very, very important in beginning to create the life that we want for ourselves. Remember, if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hands. For the religious people, this Bible verse has turned almost into a cliche, which is faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. If I want a watch, if I dream of a Rolex watch, faith is the substance, which is my faith is the watch. I hope for the watch in the future, but they say the evidence, which is the proof, an event that already took place, but is not seen with the naked eyes. In other words, the evidence is a proof that you already had that watch. A lot of us do not understand that it's not enough to envision what we want. What's important is that that particular thing we want, we are acting as though we already have it through gratitude, joy, or even through love. Everything we want, we have the mind to create. I hope this has helped somebody the way it has helped me. I hope somebody's vibrational frequency has been raised as a result of this short message. Please keep the positive thoughts coming. Protect your minds. That's your power. Have a blessed week.